The FAFSA is changing for the 2024-2025 college year. This came out of the response to the Consolidated Appropriations Act that was passed in late December of 2020. Before we get into the changes, it's important to first define what is the FAFSA and what has it been based on. So beginning with, what is the FAFSA? Well, the FAFSA is the free application for federal student aid. So current and incoming college students will apply through studentaid.gov, and they apply in the year prior to the actual year they're going to be attending the university. So a high school senior planning to attend college in the fall of 2024 would apply in the fall of 2023. And why would students want to apply for college? Because it increases the chance that they could potentially receive money to go to college. In other words, they could potentially receive financial aid. And this financial aid could come through a few different forms. First and foremost, grants and scholarships. And grants and scholarships, as you may know, is money given to you for free by the federal government that you do not need to pay back. And as long as the money you receive is not more than the amount of the tuition and expenses, then it is not taxable. The second type of aid that one could potentially receive would be the access to take advantage of student loans, which could either be subsidized or unsubsidized. And then finally, the ability to participate in work-study programs. And work-study programs are essentially when a student agrees to work on campus, particularly in exchange for some discount related to their tuition. So that's a little bit about what is the FAFSA. Now we can talk about what is the FAFSA based on. So the FAFSA is based on a family's ability to pay for education expenses, i.e. their financial need. And a family's financial need is assessed via the FAFSA based on two factors: their assets and their income, right? So now starting first with the assets. So the assets that they're looking at are as of the day that you are reporting or submitting the application. So they're going to look at the current values as of that day that you submit the application. But not all of the assets that you have are going to be deemed to be used towards the student's college education costs, meaning there's a certain percentage that is accessible. And for parents, that percentage is 5%. So they say that parents can attribute 5% of their assets towards the student school. And then for students, that number is 20%. So they think students can apply 20% of their assets towards education costs, right? And of that, if we dig a little bit further, not all of a parent's or student's assets are deemed to, again, be accessible towards school. So we break it down into accessible assets and inaccessible assets. So starting off with what the FAFSA determines as accessible assets, these would be cash, so like bank accounts and savings accounts, investment accounts, savings accounts, so your 529s, your UTMAs, your covered education accounts, and your equity in rental property. So all these types of assets, FAFSA thinks that you can apply towards the cost of college education, right? And now we go to what are some of the types of inaccessible assets, or assets that are not going to be determined as part of the financial aid calculation. And these would be retirement plans, so 401k, traditional IRA, Roth IRA, pensions, annuities, etc. Cash value of life insurance, a business, so they're not going to ask you to sell your business to pay for school, and then equity in a primary residence, right? So this would be accessible assets and inaccessible assets. Now on the income side, for income, they're going to look at a family's income from 2 years prior to the student attending college. So if we go back to our high school senior that's planning to attend college in the fall of 2024, they're going to look at income from tax year 2022. And again, they're going to assess percentages that you can attribute your income to pay for education. And for parents, that's going to be 20 to 25% of income. And then for students, they're going to ask students to pay 50% of their income towards higher education costs. So that's a little bit about what the FAFSA is based on. The assets and income are the primary components. And once they take a look at your assets and income, what they're going to do from there is spit out an EFC number. And this is going to be a numerical value. As the abbreviation indicates, it's your expected family contribution. So this is the amount that a family is expected to contribute to college each year. And this number is important in determining how much aid the family is going to actually qualify for. So the amount of aid that the family is actually going to qualify for would be the total cost of attendance of the university that's the student's interested in, minus that calculated EFC. So that's the aid that they're going to get. So that is what is the FAFSA and what is the FAFSA based on. So now let's talk a little bit about some of the changes to the FAFSA as a result of the new legislation. So changes to the FAFSA. There's a number of changes, some positive, some negative. The first one, which is a bit on the negative side, is the EFC is going to be replaced by what's called the Student Aid Index, or the SAI. And the biggest thing to know with this is instead of it previously being on an expected family contribution, it's now going to be on a per student basis. So going to their past example, say an EFC was calculated at $30,000, and this really impacts families that have multiple kids in college. So if the family has 2 kids in college and the EFC is $30,000, then each student would be expected to contribute $15,000 per year. With the new SAI, if that comes to $30,000, then each student is deemed eligible to contribute $30,000 to college, meaning the Spark Notes is that their aid could be reduced by up to half based on the changes in the FAFSA. So that's definitely a negative. Another change would be there's going to be less questions. So we're going from about 108 questions on the FAFSA to 36. So they're actually going to make it a simpler, less complex, and more clear and streamlined. So that's going to be a good thing. Another change would be that there's going to be no more inclusion of grandparent contributions. So previously, when grandparents, say, funded a 529 plan for the benefit of a student, students would have to report that on their financial aid application, and that money would be deemed eligible to contribute to the student's costs. Now, with the new FAFSA, grandparent contributions are not going to be included. So this is a huge win, especially for grandparent-owned, 529 plans. So another change that we have is there's going to be increased access to Pell Grants. So the Pell Grants is the primary federal grant award given to FAFSA applicants. So what this essentially means is more people could potentially qualify for Pell Grants. So again, this is going to be good news here. And then a couple more changes here. There's going to be changes for divorced parents. What I mean by this is in the past, the divorced parent with whom the child lived with most of the time would be responsible for completing the FAFSA. Now, moving forward, the parent who makes the most money, who has the highest income, will be responsible for completing the FAFSA application. And this is more neutral in its impact, but it may disrupt how parents have been doing things in the past, so it could be looked at as a negative. And then the final change that I'll highlight here is that there's going to be an increase in the income protection allowance. And what this means is parents can now make more without impacting their financial aid application. So hopefully this was a good recap. If you have any other questions, don't hesitate to reach out to me. I also wrote an article that digs into more details on this topic. Thank you very much and hope this was helpful.